The Brothers Karamazov, Book 9 and Chapter 5. I think we can describe Dmitri in this chapter as sort of frustrating and honorable and frustrating all at the same time, in that he has such a naive, idealistic, hopeful view of the truth having a freeing power that it's almost sick, it's almost foolish, foolhardy. It's frustrating if you find yourself as a reader on Dmitri's side. You almost want him to hush up a little bit. But Dmitri is so committed to the truth that it's cringeworthy, and yet he's so committed to the truth that it's courageous and commendable as well. And so he condemns himself by what he does answer. He tells the whole truth. Part of the whole truth he tells is to the reader one of the only new pieces of information in Book 9. So in Book 9, we get a gigantic review of everything that's happened, sort of changing perspectives, sometimes from Dmitri's madman version of events in Book 8 to now the prosecutor's sort of rational interpretation of events. We get the same events maybe looked at it from a slightly, not a totally, but from a slightly different perspective. Well, this is one example of two that I can think of, two important ones, where we do get a new piece of information, and it seems key in the prosecutor's mind. And the key piece of information that is damning to Dmitri is that Grigory has testified and been cross-examined and testified and given his sure word that the door to Fyodor's had been open, while Dmitri testifies and gives his sure word that the door is closed. And so Dmitri is so committed to the truth that he even condemns himself by contradicting all evidence by calling the door closed. And then he sort of doubles down on this by sort of doing the detective work for the detectives and saying, look, there are three people who knew about the signals. In other words, three people capable in a closed door situation of murdering, of killing. And one of them is dead, and it's not him. It wasn't a suicide. I know I didn't do it. And that would only leave Smerdyakov. But, and almost in a comical way now, he says Smerdyakov is such a lazy fool, such a worthless loser, that he's not even strong enough, he's not even a dedicated enough person to have committed the murder. In other words, it's not that he's so good that he couldn't have done it, it's he's so bad, he's so lame, he's so weak that he couldn't even be a murderer. And so Dmitri sort of condemns himself by contradicting the testimony of Grigory. And then he further condemns himself by the only other viable, plausible suspect in the interrogator's mind and the police mind. He goes ahead and he argues against Smerdyakov being the killer. So this gets to be where Dmitri is almost frustratingly honest. It seems like when you go on the stand and you speak as a witness, and the attorney that is going against you, when they cross-examine you, it seems like the strategy is that you want to say as little as possible. It seems like when someone is trying to trip you up, when someone is against you, and they keep asking question after question and then cross-examining, it seems like the dumbest thing that you can do is just keep talking and talking, giving all these details, because the more details you give, the more chance you have of getting tripped up and contradicting yourself and saying things a different way than the first way you said it. And Dmitri seems to pay no regard whatsoever to this way of thinking. He just keeps vomiting thing after thing, trying to excuse Smerdyakov. And then, in the most frustrating, sort of the climax of frustrating things, is finally that he will just not answer one question. And that is because of his honor. And it's almost comical that Dmitri has such a sterling moral code, and yet he does. He doesn't want to admit that he's just an everyday scoundrel who would steal 3,000 rubles from his fiancée, from his girlfriend. And so all of these things are frustrating. He's too honest. he's starting to accuse people. He's starting to advocate for people who could have killed Fyodor. And then finally, he picks one thing not to be forthright about, and it's based on some honor code of his. And so this is a frustrating chapter if you want Dmitri to get off the charge here. And then this chapter ends with a request that will be taken in more fully in chapter 6, and that is for Dmitri to become humiliated by being undressed because we found some blood on his shirt, and so now he's just looking more and more guilty. And now what does guilt lead to? In the next chapter, the shame of nakedness and the shame of ill-fitting clothes.